Hello! Today is about fermentation. We know it's good for our food, but it's also great for your chicken's feed. Chickens love fermented feed almost as us girls like chocolate. I want to show you what I've learned about fermentation, what grains I choose to ferment, and I'm going to show you the setup that I have going on here at my own home. I encourage you to do your own research on the internet or books or wherever you can find it, especially if you want to know all the little nitty-gritty scientific-y stuff that I'm not that great at. First of all, I want you to know that I have been fermenting part of my chicken's feed for almost 3 years now. It's super easy to do, but it could be a really big deal if you do it wrong. So let's go over a few fast fermenting facts. Now there are quite a few benefits to fermenting your chicken feed. One of the most important is that it puts the good bacteria or probiotics in their gut. So not only is their digestive system healthier, but their immune system is much better. It makes the egg shells harder and it increases the egg weight. It increases the amount of nutrients available for the chickens to digest, which lowers my feed bill, and yes, it reduces the amount of poop they put out, which we can all appreciate. And from what I've read, it also seems to create B vitamins in the feed that wasn't even there before, and it reduces the risk of salmonella and E. coli. Now I'm sure there are other benefits that I haven't listed, but those are the ones that I know. Fermented feed should smell sour, like yogurt. However, if it starts to smell rancid or just disgusting, I throw it out and start all over. However, I haven't had to do that very often because I keep up with it every day. If I'm going to go out of town, it doesn't get stirred and can get kind of gross, and that's usually when I end up having to start a new batch. I've read some information and seen some videos on how some people will start their fermented feed with some kind of starter. I haven't had to do that. There seems to be enough of the bacteria on the outside of the grain to start that fermentation process all on its own. I have added pickle juice before and it seemed to start just fine, but all the other batches, when I have to start one over, I just use the dechlorinated water and the seed, and I don't do anything else. And technically, you can keep a fermentating bucket going for just about forever. As I take out grains, I add more each day so that there's always grains in the buckets. And the longer they sit, supposedly the better they get. But if you let them sit, I don't know, 3 weeks, they might get too sour, and I really doubt the chickens are going to want to eat it. These are the 3 buckets that I keep my feed fermenting in. There is one for 3 days in a row. That way the feed can ferment for at least 3 days. Because from what I understand, it takes about 3 days to ferment the feed under ideal conditions. And I will probably, when I can get my hands on some more buckets, add to this so that I can ferment for maybe 5 days. The more it ferments, the better it is. Now I'm not going to get into BPA and glass and the best things you can use. I'm a homesteader on a limited income, and I'm going to use what I've got. And I love these containers. And the reason is this lid right here. I don't snap it shut. I just leave it kind of loose like that. And it does 2 things. One, it keeps the bugs from getting in and making it gross. And 2, what it does is it allows the gas from the fermentation process to escape so that I don't have a fermenting bomb on my deck. This bucket here on the end is empty, and I'm going to show you how I prepare this bucket so it'll do the same thing that these two buckets are doing. As we know, the city adds chlorine to our drinking water to kill the germs and bacteria, making it safe to drink, depending on who you talk to. Anyway, I need to get the chlorine out of the water because I want my germs to live. Only live bacteria can ferment my grain and turn it into fermented feed. The way I do this is I fill this bucket up full of water and I leave it out for 24 hours. Doing so allows the chlorine to evaporate, making it safe for the fermentation process. Here's a good look at the grains that I use in my fermentation process. I don't use organic grains because, well, they're just out of my price range. However, I am trying to stay soy-free and GMO-free, so I use oats, barley, sunflower seeds, and milo, depending on what's available and in season. Now, just as a side note, if you can ferment any kind of feed that you have for your chickens, whether it's grain or pellets or crumble, just keep in mind that if you're fermenting crumbles or pellets, that feed is going to swell up, and it's going to swell up over the water, and you're going to have your feed exposed to the air, which again, it's going to produce that bad bacteria that could make your chickens sick. So just make sure that your crumbles, your pellets are completely an inch or two underwater at all times. Now I'm going to add the grain straight to the water. See this bubbly film on top? This shows me that right now the feed is fermenting. And I just stir that in because that's what they call, I guess for lack of a better word, a Scooby. So I'm going to stir all three of these buckets up every day to keep that fermentation process going. Some of these sunflower seeds float to the top, and there's just not really anything I can do about that. After a couple of days, these seeds will drop to the bottom. This is important because any feed that's been floating on the top too long will get moldy, and that will make your chickens sick. So make sure that you have about, I guess from the beginning, if you're starting a new batch, have 1/3 of the container with the food or grain and 2/3 of the water. That way it'll allow for the soaking up of the material and it still be underwater. Get yourself one of these nice big strainers. I found this at a garage sale. Anything with holes in it will do. And a spatula with these holes in it. I don't know what this is called, but these are the main two items that I use to strain out my grains every morning. Put the bucket right in front. Good. Okay, now dig the grains out of there and put it in the strainer there. Yeah, we're going to put a whole bunch. So what's going on in here is the water is straining out of this container and into the bucket. I'll feed this to the chickens, and then when I'm finished, I'll take all of this liquid that I drained out and pour it back into that bucket. I only give the chickens enough of the fermented feed for one day. I don't want to leave it out over 24 hours. One, the mice might get some, and I don't want to feed the mice. But two, I'm always concerned about it getting moldy. So for me, I only put out enough fermented feed for the chickens to eat in one day. Chickens love fermented feed almost